Think about what you just did before the break. Right? I'm just stating that this is the case. You will do this. Well, what if I don't want to do that? So there's a difference between statement and suggestion. And what we're after is structures of suggestion that are neither pushy nor wussy, that you just kind of follow along naturally with, because you don't have to think, oh God, am I going to grant this person this favour? And you don't have to go, oh, you're being a bit pushy there. Right. So there are certain linguistic structures that I call open suggestions. And open suggestions are all based on two principles. And those principles are possibility and invitation. So these are the two principles behind open suggestions. And these are the kinds of things that Milton used to use all the time. And it's one of the things that distinguished him from a classically trained authoritarian sort of hypnotist, right? Because none of this possibility invitation stuff. Classical hypnosis is, when I do this, you will do this. There's no possibility about it. It's going to happen. And it's going to happen because I say so, not because I've invited you to explore something. Right? So Erickson always used possibility and invitation. So possibility. There are certain types of, this is something that we go into, well, okay, all of this stuff we go into much more detail and explore much more fully in the practitioner course. But in a particular subject in the practitioner course called the meta model, which is a model of language, we explore certain linguistic structures, and one of those structures is modal operators. And there's lots of different varieties. There's about half a dozen, some between 6 and 8 different varieties of modal operator. And there's a couple that we pay a lot of attention to in NLP because they direct your attention really powerfully. One of them is modal operators of necessity, which is have to, needs to, must, that kind of thing. That's the modal operator of authoritarian suggestion. You have to do this, you must do this, you will go into trance. Okay. And there are other modal operators called modal operators of possibility, which are things like can, could, might. Right? Can, could, might, may. These are modal operators of possibility. Right? So these are fantastic words to build into your suggestions. Can, could, might, may. Invitation, of course, is not so much about particular words, particular linguistic structures, as it is about the way that you offer something. Do you tell someone that this is the case? Or do you offer them an invitation to do something which they could accept or could refuse? So you give them choice. So open suggestions involve both possibility and invitation. And there's a few different varieties, and rather than me kind of giving you rules for how to structure these things, what I'll do is just give you a bit of a cheat sheet. Like here's 4 or 5 of these that are really good open suggestions. Right? And as I wrote them, no doubt you'll find yourself recognising them in my speech. Right? So you might find, so since you recognise this as a truism, and since I've just written some stuff up on the board there which you also recognise as a truism, you might find that this is an easy pattern to recognise. Now, I'm not saying you will or you have to, but you might find that. I'm opening the possibility up so that it's perfectly okay for you not to discover that, but I'm still directing your attention that way. Right? So I'm going to definitely build in a suggestion at the end of this. Right? You might find that you can do this easily. So I'm directing your attention very specifically to where I want you to go, but I'm doing it in such a way that it's open, that it's not binding. Does that make sense? So I'm not being completely pushy about it, but I'm also saying you might find any number of things. Who knows? You could just experience what or not. It's not particularly effective as a suggestion, right? That's the equivalent of it's in your mind. Right? So directing their attention to a very specific suggestion, but in such a way that you're leaving things open. You might find that this is the case. Right? So, since I've already talked about that particular one, we might as well go on to the next one. Right? So again, possibility. And I'm not saying we have to go on to the next one, but I'm already moving there. It's open for you not to, but this is the way I'm going, and I've already said that we're here together, right? So you recognise truisms, you've done a whole bunch of exercises with truisms, you're beginning to explore these patterns, so we might as well... Oh, okay. Not you have to, not this is the next step, but we might as well. And since we've come this far, you might like to just have a look at the next step. Or you might not, but that's the direction that we're going. And since that is the direction that we're going, and since I'm continuing these language patterns, why don't we have a look at the next pattern? It's staggering how often this kind of thing works, right? So we're all here, and it's a Sunday and we're in a hotel, so how about we go watch some TV? Okay. What's that got to do? Which is another one, of course, right? How about? And the ones in blue, you'll notice a couple of things about the ones in blue. One of them is that these involve the word we rather than you. Right? And also there's a lot more momentum to those ones. Right? It's presupposing movement. Right? So why don't we? So how about we? So what if we? So if we, I haven't put that one up. Right? So we might as well. Right? We are moving, so why don't we move in this direction? Right? So more momentum, but in order to sustain that momentum, I'm presupposing that we are together in this and moving as a unit. Right? So you're not moving, I'm not just telling you to go away and do something. Right? So with the ones with you, I'm keeping it much more open in terms of possibility. You might find that, you might discover that, you might like to, you might care to. Maybe you could. So these are all open suggestion structures.
You could have that one in maybe we could?
Yeah, you could do that as well. I mean, there's lots of different variations of these. I'm just giving you these as here's a cheat sheet. Here's a short list of like easy ones that you can just remember. What you'll probably find is that as you begin to use these more and more, and as you begin to employ them more and more, in particular in a work environment, in that particular context, you find yourself in a position where you just discover yourself being a little bit more creative. Right? So while it might be the case that you start with this as a cheat sheet, you could find in time that you just start generating these on the fly. You know, because you have the basic pattern, the basic idea down pat, and so you just kind of make up a whole bunch more. Right? But this is a cheat sheet to start with, because this is a 2.5-day course, and we can only do things to a certain extent in a 2.5-day course compared to other things. So nice simple stuff. Just here you go. Here's some we prepared earlier, kind of thing. Right?
You used a couple in there.
Did I?
Yeah.
No. NLP trainers are sneaky and devious bastards. They're always demonstrating what they're teaching.
And?
And you're a great learner.